We're live. Hello, folks. Hope you can hear me okay. Let's see, we're just getting a wee bit adjusted. 1, 2, 3 with the light. I think it's not quite. Just trying something with it there today. Get a little bit better. There we go. That's a wee bit better. Thanks for joining us. Just popping on a wee second early. We've just gone to 9 o'clock there now. So I hope you can all hear me okay. Thanks very much for joining me for chapter 21 of our Dune book club. I'm just getting coffee. Excellent. Thank you very much, love. Yeah, we're going to be busy tonight. This is quite a chapter. So I'll give it a wee second or two just for a few folks to join in. Oh, yeah, sure. Hang on. There we go. Thank you. And there we go. Sorry about that. So, yeah, this is chapter 21 within Dune of, excuse me, book 1 of Dune, which is entitled Dune. So we've one chapter to go. Basically, and then we'll be hitting book 2 of Dune, which is entitled Muad'Dib. Of course, Dune is divided into 3 books, so with book 3 being the Prophet. So this is I suppose quite a lot happens here. We get quite a lot of conclusions within this chapter. And yeah, very, very important. As I said, a lot, and we have plans that are coming to fruition, but they're plans that have long-term thinking to them, I suppose. And we do get a good, I suppose this is one of those chapters that we get predominantly the Baron's viewpoint, and we get a little bit of a sense of his mind and what he's about. Excuse me. Bear with me 1 wee second. But we also get a sense of, the viewpoint shifts in between the Baron's viewpoint and Leto's, as of course we come to the conclusion of what's going to happen to Leto, what we've been told that's going to happen to him right from the very beginning, that he's doomed, and nothing for the father, etc., etc. So there we go, folks. Is just saying hello. Bojack says good afternoon. Afternoon, Bojack. It's evening here, but thanks for joining us. Peter said, Doc, I'm at work, but I'm tuning in under the radar. No problem, Peter. Thanks for joining us as well. And as if anybody else is out there, give us a wee shout in the comments if you've anything. There's quite a lot of detail in this chapter, and it's taken me the better part of a couple of days to work through it. Bear with me 1 wee second, folks. I'm just going to get a wee snoot here somewhere, just for my coughing. Just helps to muffle things. Bear with me. Oh, there's one. Oh, right. There we go. Right. Okie dokie. So yeah, and I suppose the other thing is that this chapter is body count heavy, really, if we think about it. Quite a lot of characters meet their end here, and we also get a bit of a mystery resolved as well. One of the mysteries that is in Dune, it's a little mystery, and we don't really find out too much about it, but we do get it resolved. So epigraph 21 that begins chapter 21, and let's see, where we go. Just now I read it directly from the book. There is a legend that the instant the Duke Leto Atreides died, a meteor streaked across the skies above his ancestral palace on Caladan. From the Princess Irulan introduction to A Child's History of Muad'Dib. So I suppose keywords legend there, to do with the instant that he died on a planet far across the universe, a meteor streaked across the skies of his ancestral palace on Caladan, giving him a bit of an astral myth, if you like. And there is a legend, I'm sure there is, and I wonder who made it up. It's one of those things that, again, reeks of, in these books for kids, reeks of Atreides propaganda, doesn't it? Is the mystery about Jessica and the... Well, no, it's basically, it's just, is, I suppose the little mystery is Dr. Yui's wife alive? That's the one I was talking about, Peter. Really, that's one of... It's been one of our little mysteries that is solved quite neatly here. We find out that she is in fact dead, and has been for some time. And it's the thing that Yui's been waiting for all this time, really, is to get the opportunity to read the Baron, really, to get that close. So we do get, it's not a major mystery in the book, but it is an interesting one. And I always kind of thought about what happened to Wanna to be quite interesting, especially with whenever we discuss this sort of level of, I suppose, what is it, surety with the imperial conditioning that these Sook doctors have. Um, Let me just have a wee look. Did I see? Just quickly running through something here. Just wanted to see if there was a wee thing on Doctor UE back here. No, I think it's in one of the epigraphs, actually, isn't it? That we get her. Is it Juana Marcus? I think is her name. I'm trying to remember her surname. I should probably get my other wee notebook out. Sorry, not to get distracted too much there. I'll go looking for things like that later. Excuse me. So no, that's the little mystery, I suppose, that's solved. The other thing that I suppose that whenever we get through this is we do have this sort of flip back and forward between the Baron's point of view. We're going to sort of see by the end of this chapter, and we should get ahead, that the Baron's thinking is not too far removed from Leto's, I think. So it's about the legendary status of Leto's death here. There's Cynthia saying hello, Doc, and all. Hello, Cynthia. Thanks for joining us. And oh goodness, so we've all got a wee bit of a touch of the cold here at the minute, just with the getting out in the good weather again and so on. He couldn't stand seeing her in the power's pain amplifiers. That's right. But we've got to assume at some point that Yuri left, however he got to see, or, Juana and being tortured by the Piter's pain amplifiers. That we have to assume at the last point that he saw her, that she was still alive, and that, that he's been working in that regard for the Harkonnens ever since. But it's the uncertainty, and we're going to get that certainty here. So it's just, as I said, there's a whole bunch of mysteries within Dune, and a whole chunk of them aren't actually solved at all for us. So it's nice to point out whenever the odd one that does get solved turns up. So we begin, excuse me, with the Baron Harkonnen setting up our scene for us, if you like. We're getting a little bit of, I suppose, an internal viewpoint and an external viewpoint. He stands at the viewpoint of the grounded lighter he's using as a command post. Out of the port, he sees a flame-lighted knight of Arakeen, his attention focused on the distant shield wall where his secret weapon was doing its work. And I quite like that. It sort of has a little bit of, much as we've moved into this chapter from the previous chapter, and we talked about the bit of a cliffhanger with Paul and Jessica. It kind of has that sort of that feel, the secret weapon, if you know what I mean. I don't know, Saturday morning serials and spy thrillers and all that kind of thing. So very interestingly, within this universe, we're told what his secret weapon is straight away, so it doesn't remain a secret. It is, of course, explosive artillery, and this is quite interesting. I've just put it's an archaic weapon in terms of the Dune universe. It would suggest World War I, World War II onwards. And we get now with the Baron here, when it comes to his, I suppose, the action that results from his plans. Here we have that the guns we're told that the artillery is bombarding the Duke's men who've retreated to these caves at the shield wall to fight a last ditch stand. The language that's used within this part of the book is all to do with food. If you think about it, eating, consuming, the guns nibbled at the caves. We're told that they're taking slowly measured bites of orange glare. The Dukes, oddly enough, the term that the Duke's men are being sealed off to die of starvation, to be sealed off like animals in their burrows. So that the words that we're going to get, the Baron can feel the distant chomping, the drumbeat carried through the ship's metal, the brum, 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 with that exclamation mark and the capitals there. And Yeah, chomping. So if you think about just as we have we look at this section, and we'll pay a wee bit more attention to it in detail. But we have nibbled, we have bites, we've got chomping, and we do have this association with food, with the Baron eating with food, etc. And we're going to get a lot of odd sort of metaphors and similes within this, and it's going to let us know how the Baron sort of looks at the little people, I think. So just to recap on the action there, the guns have nibbled at the caves. The Duke's fighting men are there. They've retreated for a last-ditch stand. And they're sealed off. They're going to die by starvation like animals in their burrows. And I made a wee note there just previously, and I wasn't too sure we'd had that those sounds with Jessica's heartbeat, if you recall. Way back when. Let me jump back a wee bit. I think that would have been chapter 19, would it have been? Let me just see if I can quickly find that there. And I think I'd asked before, here we go. It's in chapter 19 at the beginning. Her mouth felt strange. The noise, lump, 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 lump in the distance. The dull sound, directionless in the dark. And we asked sort of at the time, was this Jessica's heartbeat? It could have been, but there's a chance it could have also been sounds of the artillery. Of course, the action's moved in time here a wee bit. Excuse me. And we get at this point, so it's, quite interesting. A lot of eating terms. Bojack says he couldn't stand seeing her in power playing amplifiers, back to talking about Wanna frightening and Piters, that's right. This chapter shows how inadequate Villeneuve's Baron is. It shows how intelligent the Baron. I couldn't agree more. The Baron's got a couple of great chapters. Chapter 2 in the book, if I'm not mistaken, where we first meet him. Yes, chapter 2. But this one in particular, and the Baron comes across here as really smart, and I would argue, in comparison to Leto has been outclassed. This guy is in a different class than Leto, I think. And there's a lot of actual things that are said in this chapter that actually make us question the whole nature of the feud between the Harkonnen and the Atreides. As much as we've had a viewpoint on it often from the Atreides, we're going to get a little comment about it from the Baron here, which if whenever we get to it, I suppose it's highly suggestive that none of this needed to happen, and that really a quiet word could have sorted all of this out between the Baron and Leto, and that arguably that's the way the Baron would have liked it. So yeah, it's one of those chapters that the Baron really is the star of this, and he comes through. He survives this chapter as well. So we've got a direct attempt on his life in it. There's Chaya saying shalom all. Excuse me, shalom Chaya. Pardon me, my throat's a wee bit tickly tonight. Thanks very much for joining us. But I couldn't agree more. The more and more I think about the Baron and Piter in Denis Villeneuve's film, the more and more I think it's like a caricature or almost a homage to, is it Colonel Kurtz? He seems more Marlon Brando than Baron Harkonnen. I think it's strange. I have to say, the Baron's not exactly a villain. I think the more villainous he is, the cleverer he is. He's on a par with the Professor Moriarty. That kind of, he's an intellectual villain. He's certainly not an action hero in any sense of the word, if you know what I mean. He's and I think he's very human as well. I think he's an exceptional human in certain ways. And we'll see that what he thinks of himself. But in many others, he's just I think he has his moments. I think he can be I think he's a bit of a psychopath in some ways as well. Possibly not, actually. It's maybe not the right term. And it depends on how we look at royalty, I suppose, at the end of this chapter. So just thought worth pointing out, we've got a few interesting metaphors, but we have nibbles, bites, chomping, all of this kind of thing. And the brump, 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 brump. We've got from the drum beat, the chomping, bit of onomatopoeia working here. And of course, we get a bit of the Baron's thoughts here straight away. And, quite pleased with himself, isn't he? Let's just bring my book over here just to read this bit from the book. Who would think of reviving artillery in this day of shields? The thought was a chuckle in his mind, but it was predictable the Duke's men would run for those caves, and the Emperor will appreciate my cleverness in preserving the lives of our mutual forces. So, in terms of what we think about the Baron, this one's quite interesting. First of all, the chuckle in his mind, he's quite pleased with himself. The word "but" is there, isn't it? But it was predictable. He's predicting what the Duke's men will do. He knows where they'll run because he knows the terrain. He knows that they'll run for those caves, the shield wall. Where else is there to go, really? And it's an advantage. I've made a note here. He knows the terrain of Arrakis. He's been here before. Pardon me. And therefore has a distinct advantage over the Atreides. The Emperor will appreciate my cleverness in preserving the lives of our mutual forces. So he doesn't want to have his own men slaughtered. And in that sense, you get the sense that the Atreides are happy to send their men to their, foot soldiers are for fighting, and fighting men, as they're called, send them to their deaths. But we get an idea that he also doesn't want to deplete his troops here. There's no point in killing men just for the sake of it. He's found a way of dealing with these men, and by killing them at a distance and easily. There's Chris Gibson. And Cynthia, Baron calls himself a carnivore later, correct, in this chapter. These early food images for the artillery suggest an omnivore at the minute. He's eating a planet. Very good, Cynthia. Chris says, yes, I haven't seen the film yet, but Colonel Kurtz sprang to mind watching a clip of the Baron. Yes, Chris, I mean, it's an obvious nod to the imagery and all that. For anybody who knows Apocalypse Now, which is based on Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness. Yeah, very much so. And I would include that, I don't know, for those of you who have seen the film, and I didn't see it in IMAX, I thought the Baron mumbled a lot. I found it hard to hear him. So it was one of the things that whenever we watched it on the version at home, that the subtitles really, that's what he said. But I thought he mumbled a lot. And again, I thought that was a bit of a nod to Marlon Brando's Kurtz in the Apocalypse Now. But yeah, very much so. The imagery, the whole, that there. So yeah, I know you could probably find side by side photos, and I don't think that the Baron is a character who needs to be. Let's pay homage to this character by suggesting he looks like another cinematic character, and I want to pay homage to a film director that I love in my movie. It's a bit wrong for this guy, I think. And as we've said, we're going to find out by the end of the chapter as well, guys, that the Baron has been completely defanged. Oh, sorry, just checking at the Doghouse tonight. We've got, I think all three of them are out. We've had some bad weather here, but it's been not too bad over the evening. But we've got one dog sleeping over here, one over here, and I don't know if you can hear that one, but it's, it's having a bit of fun out in the hall. Sorry about that, it was distracting me a wee bit. I was just trying to figure out what it was. Excuse me. Oh, I could do a set of throaties, I tell you. Morning all, says Brad. Morning, Brad. It was deliberately done. Indeed. I mean, I like the Baron as a villain. I think he has good qualities as a villain. And past, I suppose if we go past what we're supposed to see, the big floating fat guy, unfortunately he is pretty villainous in terms of his sexual appetites and this kind of thing. And his food is the food thing here is definitely there's an association with, I suppose, the fulfillment and development of his plans and what he, I don't know. There's something similar at the end of chapter 2. If I can go all the way back in terms of, the wee sort of food comments. Let me just see. Just very quickly at the end of chapter 2, after explaining all his, all his plans and everything, it just kind of it goes to his weight, doesn't it? Um, it just goes, his figure took on dimension, grossly and immensely fat. Subtle bulges beneath the folds of his dark robes to reveal that all this fat was sustained partly by portable suspensors harnessed to his flesh. He might weigh 200 standard kilos in actuality, but his feet would carry no more than 50 of them. I am hungry, the Baron rumbled, and he rubbed his protruding lips with a beringed hand, stared down at Feyd-Rautha through fat and folded eyes. Send for food, my darling. We will eat before we retire. So the food thing is a running motif with him. And we're going to get some comments, I suppose, on the Baron and his behaviour with his hands and so on from Leto as well. Chris says, I'd hate to think how many times I've watched it, probably second only to the Outlaw Josie Wales. Was that Apocalypse Now? I quite like the Outlaw Josie Wales. Haven't seen that in a long time. That's a good one, isn't it? Was it Now Spit? Yeah, that's a good one. Apocalypse Now, I don't know. I've watched it a couple of times, and I'm happy enough leaving kind of films like that. I'm sure I've seen a version of Heart of Darkness at some point. Yeah, I think there's a lot of homages and nods, if you like, in Dune. Visual ones, if you like, but to have the Baron, I thought not only have we reduced him just to sort of a floating, his main villainy comes from his fatness, if you like, if we're turning in terms of his personality, but I thought he was very inarticulate. I don't know, I just don't get that. That's not how, I don't think it's how the Baron would present himself. I'd expect him to be very articulate, you know. So yeah, just the appreciate. He's not going to throw his men to the slaughter. You know, he's how he's gone about this. Artillery. You know, old fashioned, and it seems to be a good solution to the Duke's shields. He doesn't want to deplete his troops. So there is actually, you know, and that might probably just be for military reasons, no other reasons. And we'll find out actually that there's probably, excuse me, oh dear, an economic one. Oh dear, my throat's absolutely hammered tonight, folks. Tell you what, honey, that was bad. I just felt my throat crumble. Excuse me. Right, bear with me. Goodness gracious, I hope this doesn't become a problem. Excuse me. Right, I'll try and go on as best I can. That was just totally lost the ability to speak there for a second. Right, okay. Sorry about that, folks. Right, we'll keep up the precious fluids and the honey as we go. Okie dokie. Right, so the Baron Harkonnen, let's see where we are. So we get a little zoom into him, if you like. He adjusts one of his little suspensors, guards his fat body again, and against the pull of gravity. Smile creases his mouth, pulls at the lines of his jowls. So all of our descriptions here, apart from the wee sensor, just to emphasize his weight, his fatness, giving him a physicality, if you like. Now, the Baron's thoughts. Here we go. And again, we have, very interestingly, we have the use of the word pity here. And if we remember the previous chapter with the Sardaukar, bear with me a wee second, I'll just find it. Whenever Yui says, the Sardaukar asks Dr. Yui, did you do for these people, did you kill apes, etc.? And Yui replies, more is the pity. The Sardaukar kind of nearly loses it with him. Pity, with a big exclamation mark, shouting it at him, sneering it at him. So the word pity doesn't really get much, a particular response. Oh, sorry, the word pity doesn't seem to go down well with people like the Sardaukar. We're going to see how the word pity, I suppose, things like that relate to the Emperor and the Sardaukar later. But the Baron's thoughts on it here: a pity to waste such fighting men as the Dukes. He thought, fighting men, and the word pity, I just echoing the Sardaukar, and he smiled more broadly, laughing at himself. So he's enjoying his own cleverness. Pity should be cruel. He nodded. Failure was, by definition, expendable. These men have failed. So at the end of the day, I'm sure they're good fighting men, but they've failed. They're expendable. That's the universe. And the whole universe sat there. This is how he sees things. So these men are expendable at the end of the day. The whole universe sat there, open to the man who could make the right decisions. The uncertain rabbits had to be exposed, made to run for their burrows. Else, how could you control them and breed them? He pictured his fighting men as bees routing the rabbits, and he thought, the day hums sweetly when you have enough bees working for you. Right. So quite a bit here, and it really does tell us quite a bit about, we've just started this chapter, and wow, there's a bit of an ego trip here, isn't there? But his thoughts are quite articulate. The whole universe is open to the man who can make the right decisions. I'm that man. That's what he's saying here. And there are uncertain rabbits that should be exposed. He's talking about Leto Atreides here, made to run for their own burrows. How else can you control them? How else can you breed them? And I suppose the analogy that the Atreides fighting men are like scattered rabbits running to their burrows. I was kind of thinking very much a bit of a Watership Down kind of thing going on here. And bear with me a wee second. I was just wondering about the publication of Watership Down. This is, of course, by Richard Adams. Excuse me. Well, it's quite a late novel, isn't it? 1972. So it just made me think a wee bit about that. I don't know if anybody's ever read or seen any of Richard Adams' books, etc., or the animations that were made out of them. There's more to Watership Down, I think. And interestingly, I'd say, what was it I was thinking on? If anybody's ever seen The Plague Dogs as a cartoon, that's that's one of my first 3 videos, VHS videos that I ever watched. Watership Down's kind of based on a real place, but it just got me thinking a little bit about that and the nature of Watership Down. And I know why, because it's really to do with Watership Down and its relationship to Greek myths. And I suppose, what was it I was thinking? Well, yeah, there's a certain amount of the action and intrigue, etc., in Dune is based on events from the Trojan War, if you like. We've talked about the relationship between the Atreides in this book and the House of Atreides and what we call the Pelopid line, and the House of Atreides, the sons of Atreides, Agamemnon and Menelaus, are the main instigators of the Trojan War, and arguably the 2 leaders on the Greek side, if you like. And just all this stuff about rabbits and bees. And we talk about Dune being an anti-war novel, I suppose. But in terms of the Iliad, for example, which I've described, Iliad's a pretty violent epic poem. There was a children's version of it called, here we go. Is it the Batracho Myomachia, if I've said it correctly? Bear with me. Which is the war between the mice and frogs. Batrachio. Hang on. Trachomyomachia. There we go. That's us. Which is the war of. It's pretty good. It's as I said, it's like a kids version, and it's attributed to Homer, pseudo Homerica, I think, something like that. But it's you can. I'm hoping to do a wee audiobook of it actually quite soon when we get the time. So it reminded me a wee bit on that, and obviously, rabbits and bees. And the day hums so sweetly when you have enough bees. The terms we have here: bees, rabbits, breeding, control, fighting men. How do you control them? How could you breed them? And it really made me think about the idea of the proletariat, uh, which is a thing from Roman times. It's to do with the Roman army. The proletariat, proles, if you've heard of the term, essentially relates to people who are an underclass, if you like, in the Roman Empire, but it simply means that you're good for having babies. And the point of that is that we need babies to become soldiers for the Roman army. If you see what I mean. Um, Again, with the Baron here, bees, suggestion that he's the queen bee, and I think that works quite well for the Baron, and the sense that they're drones bringing him his honey. Excuse me, or his melange. Mm. Straight from the bottle, weren't we just discussing gluttony? Yeah, doesn't Count Fenring have something to say about rabbits? Well, in terms of refreshing my memory, we'll probably get there. I'll probably have a wee look at it actually. But yeah, it's and of course we had Leah Kynes with his hair symbol as well. Let me have a wee look. Let's bring up a copy of Dune. We can search quickly. Let's see. Oh, Wascally Wabbits. Right. Uncertain rabbits. Rabbits, all of them. Where are we? I've got 4 instances of it in the book. The next one I'm trying to remember, of course, Stilgar stood at one side. Quickly he hissed, we're like rabbits in a cage. If a patrol catches us here, and that's about it, I think. Of course, rabbits at the feast, isn't it? The tongues of wild rabbit and a special sauce, a very old recipe. And I told my nephew of the great esteem our emperor. Here we go. Got you. I'm not sure where this is. I told my emperor of the great esteem our emperor holds for you, Count Fenring, the Baron said. Sorry, I read that again. I told my nephew of the great esteem our emperor holds for you, Count Fenring, the Baron said, and he thought, mark him well, Fade, a killer with the manners of a rabbit. This is the most dangerous kind. That's the bit we're looking for. Yeah, though at the same time as the Fenring's also described in the next passage. Small man, weak looking, face was weaselish, with overlarge dark eyes, grey at temples. His movements, he moved a hand or turned his head one way, then he spoke another way. It was difficult to follow. Yes, there we go. So indeed, the term rabbit with about Count Casimir Fenring. I'm looking forward to getting to see characters like that. I have to say they're quite interesting. So yeah, gives you a bit of a sense of how the as much as he's talking about sparing lives, it doesn't seem to be out of any sense of concern for his men. It's just that he needs men. Excuse me, to be of use. And so we have the door opens up behind him, and he observes in the reflection through the night blackened viewport Peter de Vries. And I'm gutted to say he's Peter de Vreed again in my book. And I'm just I'd argue if you've got this book, the character's Peter de Vreed as far as you'd be concerned. Actually, it's quite weird. So he comes in followed by Uman Kudu, the captain of the Baron's personal guard. In terms of names, by the way, Uman, how do we look at this, is to do with Oman. And it is related to the term settled people, I think, in Arabian. Later on, we're going to come to Nephid. So I just made a wee note of that. And we have a wee point to make about his name as well, in terms of locations within Arabia, I suppose. So this is the captain of the Baron's personal guard. We're told that there's the motion of men outside the door. And again, where are we? Number 9. Again, we're told the mutton faces of his guard, their expressions carefully sheep-like in his presence. Again, mutton as opposed to lamb. The expressions carefully sheep-like. So we've had rabbits, we've had bees, we have sheep, I suppose. Interesting, just again the metaphors that we're getting, the use of how the Baron sees things. So Piter gives him a finger to forelock mocking salute. Good news, my lord. Sardaukar have brought in the Duke. And we get the Baron studying Piter. Of course, they have his voice rumbled. Excuse me. Whereas he studied the somber mask of villainy on Piter's effeminate face. Once again, we're always told Piter has an effeminate face. And the eyes, those shaded slits of bluest blue in blue. And again, just this is quite a wee bit of an interesting insight here. I get the Baron's thoughts about Piter. Of course, we had this run with Jessica, where she was observing the Baron and Piter with her Bene Gesserit skills, and in her mind, almost going, "Oh my God, can the Baron not see this man's about to kill him? This man's a killer." The word "killer" screams, and we sort of talked about this. The Baron knows Piter. And this is something that's maybe not occurred to Jessica. We're going to see a good bit about how the Baron knows Piter here, and a wee bit of insight. And of course, a certain mention about the Bene Tleilax at the end of this chapter as well. So here's and this is going to be a problem for the Baron. Really kind of wants to use Piter a certain way, doesn't he? Soon I must remove him. He's almost outlasted his usefulness, almost reached the point of positive danger, almost, to my person. Excuse me. First, though, he must make the people of Arrakis hate him. Then they will come. Then they will welcome my darling Feyd-Rautha as a savior. So here we go. That is essentially it. That almost in a nutshell, what Leto kind of hoped maybe for Paul if things went south. The Baron's about the same thing. His goal was to turn Piter into a complete villain to the people of Arrakis, at which point he could bring in Feyd-Rautha to kill him and save the people from the evil Piter, and he would be a hero to the people, all the better to manipulate them. So this is a real absolute pointer to the dangerous hero and how the Harkonnens look at the nature of the hero is quite similar to how the Atreides do it. It's about manipulation of the masses, and simply put, I'm going to create a really bad situation for them so that this person can come in and save them, and then they'll think he's amazing and we've got them in the palm of our hands, rather than just treating people nicely and getting on with things. So it's about making a hero out of Feyd-Rautha. And we're talking about what Chris was saying, I think, about the Baron. The absence of Feyd-Rautha in Dune is, and we know we're going to see him later, I suppose, but I think it was quite important that he should be in the beginning of the film when the Baron explains his plan. And I said he's a reflection, a mirror to Paul in some ways. So soon I must kill this guy. He's almost outlasted it. And of course, almost to the point of positive danger to my person. This is what Jessica saw in him. But first, though, he's got to make the people of Arrakeen hate him, and then we can bring in Feyd-Rautha as a savior, as a messiah. So the Baron's attention shifts here. Where are we? Just get my wee footnote. To the guard captain, and this is Uman Kudu, scissor line of jaw muscles, chin like a boot toe, a man to be trusted because the captain's vices were known. And I've just toes. I've put down there's a thing going on with toes here at the minute. I've put toe of death number 3. Not that it's a toe of death, but we're getting toes mentioned an awful lot. I'm wondering. Excuse me. I'm wondering why. Ooh. Excuse me, folks. Bear with me. There's a genuine chance I might lose my throat tonight, folks. I'm so sorry. I'm going to keep going, and I'll at least try and we'll get through as much as we can. But if it totally goes, then we'll have to try and do it another time, I suppose. But I'm going to keep medicating. Oddly enough, I've been working away today and not doing that much gabbing. So, honey, right? Okay. The captain's a man to be trusted because his vices are known. I suppose in that decision, this man, well, at the end of the day, it's Yui's deceit that's got the poison tooth through things. But I suppose there's a possibility that Uman could have detected it. So, first up, let's see. First, where's the traitor who gave me the juke? I must give the traitor his reward. Ha ha ha. Playing with words. I love this. It's sort of almost a trait of the villain, isn't it? So Piter turns on one toe, and I've just at that point written toes. WTF? What the heck? That's it. I'm not going to mention toes anymore. So here's how Yui comes in here, and I think this is quite funny, and you can tell me what you think. Made a note of a few key words here, but Dr. Yui is a bit of black movement there, and Yui walked through. His motions were stiff and stringy. The mustache drooped beside his purple lips. Only the old eyes seemed alive. Yui came to a stop 3 paces into the room, obeying a motion from Piter, and stood there staring across the open space at the Baron. Dear, oh dear. Excuse me, folks. I'll see if the juice helps the throat a bit better than the coffee. Now, I don't know about you folks, but what we've got here is a black movement. We've got motions that are stiff and stringy. A repeat of those motions. And generally, I just made a wee note. They all sound a bit like medical terms. You know, how a doctor would talk to you about your stools softening or something like that. And as he topples later, there's no bending or softening. And I just thought, I don't know, that's a bit odd. Maybe I'm just reading too much into it. So Dr. Yu, his motions were stiff and stringy. Mustache drooped beside his purple lips. Only the odd eyes seem alive. Comes to a stop 3 paces into the room, obeying a motion from Piter. Stands there staring across the open space, staring at the Baron. So here we get the conclusion of Yui's efforts here. And his plan and everything that he knows or doesn't know, we're going to find out. So, Dr. Yui, my Lord Harkonnen, give us the duke. I hear it, my half of the bargain, my lord. And so the Baron looks at Piter. Piter nods. They have this little unseen thing going on. And again, the Baron looks back at Yui. The letter of the bargain, and he spat the words out. What was I to do in return? And as if I should have to do something for someone like Yui. Of course, Yui says, you remember rightly, my lord. And Yui allowed himself to think now, hearing the loud silence of clocks in his mind. He's ticked these moments. And I think that's kind of interesting. It echoes Leto's thoughts later on. Just in terms of time and the way it's mentioned here. The loud silence of clocks in his mind. He had seen the subtle betrayals. Here we are. The subtle betrayals in the Baron's manner. Wanna is indeed dead. No doubt about it here. Gone far beyond their reach. Otherwise, there'd still be a hold on a weak doctor, me. They don't have it. The Baron's manner shows there's no hold. It's over. His wife's dead. So the Bene Gesserit skills that Juana Marcus has taught Dr. Yui work for him here. He's actually able to get some kind of closure. He understands his wife is dead. And I've just put next to this the attitude of the knife. Here, Yui has an ending. He can say that that's it. It's done, and his plan is in motion. And yeah, arguably his plan, I think, works in the end. I suppose. Oop. There we go. So poor old Juana is dead. She's probably been dead all this time, but he absolutely has no doubt in his mind about it. There's Babs saying, "Evening, y'all. Sorry I'm late. No problem, Babs. Thanks for joining us. More the merrier." That's it. Yes, where are we? So just to catch up here, at 17. It's no hold. It's all over. Do I? Says the Baron. Do I really remember? You promised to deliver my Juana from her agony. So the Baron tells us here. Excuse me. And again, we're wondering, I suppose, doesn't really give us too many details, but we've all considered how has Dr. Yui's conditioning been broke. So he says, "Oh yes, now I remember. I did. Yeah, keep my promise. We was how we broke you." Let me see. I just read this from the book. That was how we bent. It says bent, not broke. And if you think about, I will bend like a leaf. Was it like a reed in the wind? That kind of thing. This is how we bent the imperial conditioning. It seems that they found a way around it. In other words, that they didn't break it. You couldn't endure seeing your Bene Gesserit witch grovel in Piter's pain amplifiers. Well, the Baron Vladimir Harkonnen always keeps his promises. I told you I'd free her from the agony and permit you to join her. So be it. And he waves a hand at Piter. So Juana Marcus has been tortured by Piter in pain amplifiers, and at this point she's dead. The language, it's one of those things of villains, isn't it? I phrased I promised to set you free, didn't I? Haha. Well, death is freedom, isn't it? That kind of thing. It's not, here's the keys to the car that I promised, and I'm going to leave you and let you live happily ever after. It's never like that. It's always a kind of a double talk, isn't it? It's vague. They're vagaries. I'd free her. He's freed her from her agony. He's done that by killing her. And I thought very kind of him, permit you. I'll allow you to die. I'll allow you to join her. So be it. So in comes Piter for the kill. And from the Baron's point, again, he gets to observe Piter. He doesn't know all about Piter, but it's always good to get data on him, I think. Piter's blue eyes go glazed. He's not there. His movement is cat-like. It has a sudden fluidity. A knife in his hand is the murder weapon. It glistens like a claw as it flashed into Yui's back. So he's a backstabber and he stabs with a knife. His glazed look, his movements cat-like. Old man stiffened, never taking his attention from the Baron. So the description of Piter in his little violent state is quite accurate. If you've ever seen anybody kind of in kill mode, they're not there. They're just, they're not there pretty much. It's not a pleasant thing to see, that look in someone's eyes. Dear, oh dear. So here we get Yui. So join her, and again he spat this out. So Yui, we're told, stood swaying. We get this sort of imagery, I suppose, to do with trees, etc. Possibly not, actually. Hang on, let's have a wee look. Well, it is trees, actually. Hang on. So he stood swaying. His lips moved with careful precision, and his voice came in oddly measured cadence. You think you defeated me. You think I did not know what I bought for my wanna? He toppled. No bending or softening. It was like a tree falling. So join her. The Baron repeated, but his words were like a weak echo. So there we have the end of Dr. Yui. Poor Yui. We get these sort of tree metaphors with Yui. We'll get swaying, fallen, toppled. We'll get oak. Like a tree in his, was it who could suspect oak in him rather than bones? And I suppose that there's almost a sense of I don't know, that he's quite old. I suppose that there's something sad about this, like a tree of wisdom or something. I don't know, but there's something quite sad about Yui toppling the way he does, and he goes down rigid, not moving, staring the Baron straight in the eye the whole time. His words are measured, and a thing that I wanted to point out, I think we'll point out again in a minute, they're not questions. You think, it's not you think you defeated me. They're statements. You think you defeated me. You think I did not know what I bought for my wanna. They're both statements. They're not rhetorical type questions, if you see what I mean. He's telling him what he thinks because he knows. Excuse me. And it's his attitude, I suppose, that really this is really going to mess with the Baron, isn't it? 21. Let me see here. Yui had filled him with a sense of foreboding. He whipped his attention to Piter, watched the man wipe the blade on a scrap of cloth, watched the creamy look of satisfaction in his blue eyes. So that's how he kills, by his own hand, the Baron thought. It's well to know. And he did give us the joke. And at this point, you're going, oh, no, really? It's kind of, you would hope, really, wouldn't you? It almost seems like maybe, yeah, we should really keep Dr. Yui alive for a minute or two, because the person that he's supposed to, and it's Piter saying, of a certainty, my lord. Well, thank goodness for that, then get him in here. Piter glances at the guard captain, whirls to obey. So he's filled with a sense of foreboding. The look of satisfaction on Piter's eyes tells him that Piter enjoys killing, but we probably figured that out because he enjoys torture as well. What have I written here? I've written this is important. So this is how he kills by his own hand, and I've written important. Paul speaks in Dune Messiah about killing with his legions at an extreme distance, I suppose. The artillery is killing people at a distance. So the Baron looks down at Yui. From the way the man had fallen, you could suspect oak in him instead of bone. Something about it impresses the Baron. I could never bring myself to trust a traitor, the Baron says, not even a traitor I created. And we go back to this night-shrouded viewport. The black bag of stillness out there was his, the Baron knew, but there was no more crump of artillery against the shield wall caves. The burrow traps were sealed off. Quite suddenly, the Baron's mind could conceive of nothing more beautiful than utter emptiness of black, unless it were white on the black, plated white on the black, porcelain white. But there was still the feeling of doubt. We're going to have to do a wee bit of research into this. Actually, we're talking. Somebody was asking the other day about the Jungian associations with color. I didn't know too much about them, but I think obviously black and white, I think, can both run with death, etc. But there is something to be looked at there. I had a wee nosy at it briefly, but not enough to talk in any way intelligently about it, I suppose. But we must have a wee nosy about the associations of colour and some of Jung's ideas. So, never trust a traitor, even one you create. The associations, yeah, all those metaphors with Yui to do with oak trees falling, that kind of thing. Um, hmm. So the artillery's gone quiet, and again, it's quite an interesting little sort of statement there from the Baron, isn't it? There's nothing more beautiful than the emptiness of black, plated white on black, porcelain white. It's it's a bit, I don't know, it's a bit Rolling Stones, isn't it? I see a red door and I wanted to turn black, that kind of thing. Yeah. Oh dear, but yeah, my throat. Sorry, my wife's just popped in a wee second. She's just saying hello, but I was just my throat nearly just completely went on me twice, like a wee. So we're it's one of those. To get some more honey. Anyway, so this feeling of doubt about that's come out with the Baron here. Let's see. Still that feeling of doubt. What had the old fool? And the fool's one of our archetypes, isn't it? What have the old fool of the Doctor meant? And it's a good question. What was that about? He'd probably known what would happen to him. If he's not that stupid. That bit about thinking he'd been defeated. You think you defeated me. And again, the Baron repeats it as a statement, not a question. What did he meant? That's a question following it, and it's a good question. The Baron's kind of concerned about it. So here we get the arrival of Duke Leto Atreides. And this is the downfall of the Duke, really. And it begins here. The Duke Leto Atreides came through the door. And we talk about entrances. It's not really in terms of how people move, the speed, etc. None of that is here. His arms are bound in chains, we're told. And his eagle face streaked with dirt. His uniform has been torn where someone ripped off his insignia. We know that was the Bashar from the last chapter. There's tatters at his waist where his shield belt has been removed without removing the uniform tie. So they've just ripped it off his belt. The Duke's eyes, rather interestingly, have a glazed, insane look. And I think that's okay. Has he gone a bit bonkers, or is it just the drugs? And of course, we know that Yui was mad, I suppose, at this point. And now being a part of Yui's madness, really, and what's left of his life here, has he gone insane? That's a good question. So, Yui's final words are just. Oh, right, I better back up here. Hang on a second, folks. There's a lot of. I better catch up with these comments before they escape me, I suppose. All right, hello. It's Mimi. It says, hello, what's happening here? Oh, my chapter 21. It's Mimi. Thanks for joining us. The spice must flow, says Jedi Dick Sensei. Sensei, thank you. Indeed, it must. Joseph Smith, 1,000,000 deaths are not enough for Yui. Yui's final words, says Cynthia, are described like a clock winding down. Then after that, the tree imagery. And the time bit there's something in Leto. It's about moving between space and time or something like that later on. I think there's something that kind of works with that. Give me a lever long enough. Says Chris. Cynthia says, perhaps the stiffness in Yui's body as he topples contrasts the perception of the Baron that he bent the Doctor. Perhaps Yui is saying, no, I'm still straight. Very good. Peter Zedek says, I'll message you about Jungian ideas about alchemy and the 4 colours afterward: black, white, yellow, and red. Thank you very much, Peter. I'd appreciate that. I've got a couple of books here. It's not just the one on Jung, but I've a couple of other ones there somewhere that I could dig out, but just haven't had time to sort of get a nosy at it. But I think it's, in terms of what we're looking at, it's pretty important. We should figure that stuff out. So we'll definitely work it out for next time, I think. Excuse me. Alchemy in the Focus. Yeah, I had a wee quick nosy at it the other day, but it was just Wikipedia. And I'm a person that prefers books for sources and stuff. But thank you very much, Peter. I appreciate that. Just to get a general sense of it, I suppose. Where are we then? Let's see. So yes, the arrival of Leto looking his glazed, insane look. And I suppose that I've also made a wee note here that the attention, in terms of how what's being presented to us, this is the attention to detail of the Baron that we're getting, really. And I think it was just worth pointing out. There's a level of observation that the Baron has that's probably not on a par with, but not far off. I would say the Bene Gesserit train type of observation. He's smart, he's astute, he observes and he learns. So he's got this glazed, insane look. And whenever the Baron's not too sure of himself, his words tend to drawl out like this. We get this, well, the Baron said, hesitated, drawing in a deep breath. We're going to see another deep breath shortly, aren't we? He knew he had spoken too loudly. This is very interesting. This moment, long envisaged, had lost some of its savour. Damn that cursed doctor through all eternity. And I just thought, well, the Baron said, hesitates. I've spoken too loudly. To who? What's he talking about here? And I simply thought that this is the Baron's sense of, drama, of theatre, in the face of a defeated enemy, if you like. He's kind of planned this in his mind so much that he kind of always knew he'd go, that's not how I wanted to say. It was too loud, just not right enough. Drawn out, hesitated. He knew he'd spoken too loudly. The moment long envisioned had lost some of its savour. And that's his sense of theatre. Yui's got into his head, basically. Damn that cursed doctor through all eternity. And I just think it is quite interesting. In his moment of glory, Yui's really done him in anyway. Not in he's got to the point of death or brought him, anything like that. But Yui really has kind of crapped all over his moment here, hasn't he? and in a way that and I think it's that uncertainty that the Baron knows. That's kind of worse than knowing, I've you're going to be killed by a trap or something that I've hidden, that kind of thing. He doesn't quite get it, and it's not understanding and not knowing that makes him, I think, more fearful. So we have this little sort of interchange, which I think is kind of weird again. I believe the good Duke is drugged, Peter said. That's how Yui caught him for us. So we know how we now know how Yui, how the Duke's been captured. Peter turned to the Duke. Aren't you drugged, my dear Duke? And you would hope so, I suppose. The voice, and we get this point of view shift at this point. Here we go. And I'll tell you what, folks, just as we go here, I'm going to take a wee quick break to blow my nose and give my throat a wee quick rinse with something, see if it helps. I'll be right back. Excuse me for one wee moment. There we go. Sorry about that, folks. Hopefully it won't be too bad. It's still a bit wheezy, but it's just a little in my throat. Peter's pain amplifiers make me think of the Ma, the machine in the pit of despair from The Princess Bride. Oh yeah, It's one of pain amplifiers. It's yeah, seems a bit much, doesn't it? Yeah, you always want, yeah. I don't know. To amplify the pain that you're already in, make it worse. Pardon me. Right, where are we, folks? Sorry about that. Leto's point of view. We get a wee shift here. And we get a sense of what it's like to be Leto. He's drugged and he's chained up. He can feel the voice that he's hearing is very far away. He can feel the chains, the ache of muscles, cracked lips, burning cheeks, the dry taste of thirst whispering its grit in his mouth. Sounds are dull and they're hidden by this cottony blanket that we're told about, which I quite like. And I've even sort of thought, is that a bit like cottony blanket? Is that kind of like a description of snow? It's just a white fuzziness over his senses, maybe. He sees only dim shapes through this blanket. And he's listening in. So we get, I suppose, the back and forth we get between the Baron and Leto over parts of this chapter. And we get to hear certain things, I suppose, and then catch it from Leto's point of view. What of the woman and the boy, Piter? Any word yet? And of course, here we go. Piter's tongue darted over his lips. He's nervous. The Baron picks up on this. You've heard something. What is it? Piter glances at the guard captain again. He's showing how nervous he is. Back to the Baron. The men have been found, he tells him. Did they report everything's okay? Asks the Baron. No, they're dead. My lord, I think it's quite a funny little bit of reportage there. They're dead, my lord. It's just and the Baron's face is livid, isn't it? The Baron's face went livid and he asked the question again. And the woman and the boy. There's no sign, says Piter. But there's that word but. There was a worm and it came while the scene was being investigated. Perhaps, as we wished, an accident. Possibly. Now, these two words I think quite important here, and the Baron's really not happy about either of them. Possibly. We don't deal in possibilities. And this is, I think, House Harkonnen's mentality is the Baron's mentality in how they operate. I think they do seem to be very shrewd. And this is an intelligence thing, I suppose, in that sense. Let me just see if I can find the right bit here. We'll move the page here. Hang on. So we don't deal in possibilities, Piter. What of the missing Thopter? Does that suggest anything to my Mentat? So he's on the ball here already, and he's wondering, is his Mentat, I think, is he applying this? What does this suggest to you, my Mentat? One of the Duke's men escaped, and of course he has this, obviously, killed the pilot and escaped, Piter says. Which of the Duke's men? Again, detail. We're told that it was a clean, silent killing. So it could have been Howard, could have been Halleck, could have been Idaho, could have been any top lieutenant. And possibilities, the Baron muttered. This word, and the Baron muttering, I suppose, when he's not happy here. He doesn't like this. So in other words, what Piter says to him, it could have been Howard, it could have been Halleck, it could have been Idaho, could have been any top lieutenant. Is not an answer, really, is it? Excuse me. So he glances at the swaying figure of the Duke. Piter tells him that the situation's in hand, and absolutely one of the Baron's good moments here, if you see what I mean. No, it isn't. That's it. The situation is in hand, my lord, is what his Mentat and his Mentat Master of Assassins, Piter de Vries, tells him. No, it isn't. And it's a shout again. He's telling him. He doesn't believe him. He's astute. He's well aware of what's going on and what the problems are. And he hasn't had a satisfactory answer as to where are the woman and the boy. So no, it isn't. Everything is not in hand. Where's that stupid planetologist? Where's the mankind? So Peter tells him that there's been word of where to find him, and he's been sent for. And Baron says that he doesn't like the way the Emperor's servant is helping us. Let me just find that wee bit till I read it proper here. Excuse me. I don't like the way the Emperor's servant is helping us, the Baron muttered. Excuse me, you can take that a couple of different ways. I don't like the way he's what he's about in terms of what he's meant to be doing for us. Or I don't like the way the Emperor's servant is helping us, in that he actually knows at this point, perhaps, that Kynes has been helping the Atreides, perhaps. So, and it is bringing Kynes in here at this point, excuse me. So we go back to Leto's point of view again. The words are through this cottony blanket, acting like a bit of a filter for him. Some of them burned in his mind, though. The woman and the boy, no sign. Paul and Jessica had escaped. As for the fate of Halleck and Idaho, it remained an unknown. There is still hope. So at this point, within Leto's mind, there is still hope. Elpis is still in the box. So again, we shift to where's the ducal signet ring. The Baron picking up on all the details. Where's this? Who's that? What's going on? The Sardaukar says it's not on him when he was taken, my lord. Again, you killed the doctor too soon, the Baron said. That was a mistake. You should have warned me, Peter. You moved too precipitately. For the good of our enterprise. Possibilities, he scowled. Possibilities. Again, that word exclaimed. He's not happy. And he's blaming, in this sense, he's blaming Peter for killing the doctor too soon. I think both he and Peter were responsible there. I think he's passing the buck a little bit, so he's not perfect, our Baron. Not in his cunning and machinations, I suppose, but throwing people under the bus, that kind of thing, having stooges and people to be disposed of is very much within the biters, the Barons. Let me say Baron and Peter, within the Baron's remit. Excuse me. Take a wee drink here. So again, we get Leto's point of view, and his thoughts hung like a sine wave in his mind. Paul and Jessica have escaped, and that there's something else there, a memory. The word a bargain is the thing that comes to mind. You can almost remember it. And here we go, the tooth. Aha, he does remember it. And I've made a wee note. This is Yuri's imprint on Leto. The number of times he mentioned the tooth prior to this, it's worked. He's remembered it. He's remembering part of it now. A pill of poison gas shaped into the false tooth. Remember the tooth. Someone told him the tooth is in his mouth. He can feel the shape of it with his tongue. And all he has to do is bite sharply. Remember the tooth, but not yet. Someone told him, wait until you're near the barn. But who? Cannot remember. So again, we're getting Leto's internal monologue here. Very drugged internal monologue. And we keep sort of getting a shift between the internal and the external, if you like, of his mind. So back to the Baron. Another point of view shift here. How long has he been drugged? Where are we? Number 38. How long will he remain drugged like this? The Baron asks. Perhaps another hour, we're told. Perhaps. There's that word again. Perhaps, the Baron muttered. Again, he turned to the night-blackened window. I am hungry. That's the Baron. From Leto's point of view, we've shifted again, and there's that food thing. So I wonder, is it the way Leto's drugged? Is it the key word that I'm hungry? That must be the Baron. sort of jolts there. That's the Baron, the fuzzy grey shape, the shape that dances back and forth, swaying with movements of the room. The room seems to expand and contract, grows brighter and darker, folds into blackness, and fades for Leto. So we're getting a kind of very much his a sense of what's going on in his mind, his point of view. And we're told that in relation to time, this bit's interesting. Time became a sequence of layers for the Duke. He drifted up through them. I must wait. I think that was the wee bit I was thinking of in relation to Yui's clock. I thought, let me just have a wee quick look. Yui's thoughts were he allowed himself to think now how the loud silence of the clocks in his mind. Here's the line. Yeah, I suppose it's a thing to do with time. Not quite the same thing. I must wait. Yes. Where are we? The sequence of layers for the Duke. He drifted up through them, and he knows he has to wait. 39. Where are we? Sorry, I'm losing my place again here. There we are. Okay, so there was a table. Leto saw the table quite clearly, and a gross fat man on the other side. The remains of a meal in front of him. So time has shifted here. Leto, that room expands and contracts, grew brighter and darker, folded into blackness and faded. The sequence of layers for the Duke. He's fallen. He's passed out there, and with the Baron going, "I'm hungry." Him passing out wakes up they've had a bit of food. The remains of a meal are in front of him. So Leto feels himself sitting in a chair across from the fat man. He can feel his chains, the straps hold him to his tingling body to the chair. And he's aware now of a passage of time, but doesn't know how much. I believe he's coming round, Baron. The silky voice, from Leto's point of view, identifies that as Piter. So I see Piter, rumbling basso, the Baron. So let's see, 41. Leto sensed increasing definition in his surroundings. Things are becoming clearer. The chair beneath him took on a firmness. The bindings were sharper. So his senses seemed to be coming back a bit. And possibly that's why the Baron's asked how long is he going to stay drugged. When we're told perhaps another hour. Hour for dinner. Just thinking about that. Is that what he does within the hour? Certainly what do they do? They eat, don't they? So his vision's clearing up a bit. He's starting to sort of regain his senses a wee bit. He sees the Baron clearly now, watches the movements of the man's hands, talks about the compulsive touchings, the edge of the plate, the handle of the spoon, finger tracing the fold of the jowl, and Leto watches his hand, fascinated by it. So you can hear me, Duke Leto. We know that you can. We want to know, where is your concubine and the son you sired upon her? So they learned their lesson maybe by when they've gotten rid of Yui a little bit quickly. They're maybe not too keen to get rid of Leto quite so quickly until they can figure out what's happened to Jessica and Paul. Excuse me. So no sign escaped. Back to Leto's point of view, no sign escaped Leto, but words were awash. These words are awash of calmness through him. It's true, they don't have Paul and Jessica. So he gives nothing away in his facial expressions when he hears these things, but it gives him a calming effect. They don't have Paul and Jessica, and that seems his main and only real concern here. He had a little bit of hope earlier, but I wonder how much of that stays with him. So the Baron, again, point of view shift, not a child's game, this, you know that. Voice rumbling, leans forward and studies Leto's face. So as much as Leto has been studying the Baron's hands, here we've got the Baron studying Leto's face. It pains the Baron. Now this is the bit we were talking about, folks. Right, let's have a wee look. In terms of all of the nonsense in Dune, we've often said that the whole thing could have been dealt with a wedding, but at this point, It looks like a polite conversation and a handshake would have done the job. Let's see. This is not a child's game we play, the Baron rumbled. You must know that. He leaned towards Leto, studying his face. It pained the Baron that this could not be handled privately, just between the two of them. To have others see royalty in such straits, it set a bad precedent. I wonder how much of that's true. Is simply what I was wondering. I don't know what you guys think. Is that a bit of a self delusion? Is that a self delusion from the Baron? We could have handled this any other way. We are told that there's kind of meditations of peace made by the Harkonnens, etc. And is it simply? I suppose it makes you ask the question: has Leto perpetuated the Canley, this feud between the Harkonnens and the Atreides, for his own purposes? If we're told here that they're trying to make amends, the Baron would like to. It pained the Baron that this could not be handled privately, just between the two of them. Now, of course, we also know the Emperor's involved in this as well. But yeah, it's one of those things that just, I wonder about that statement. That's kind of interesting. And we do know that the Harkonnens have made overtures towards peace, I suppose. But really, the level of Canley, I suppose, the level of planning in this plan to defeat the Atreides is something else. So just raises a few questions, I think. So where are we? Leto feels his strength returning. Now the memory of the false tooth stood out in his mind like a steeple in a flat landscape. Been to Holland. Let's see. I just put this an interesting little simile there, and it's a bit phallic as well. The nerve-shaped capsule in his tooth contains poison gas, and he remembers who. It was Yui. Through his drug-fogged memory, he remembers the corpse. Was it? Let me just see. Does he remember the corpse being dragged? It's like vapor in his mind, but let me just read that. He knew it was Yui. 44. I've probably not paraphrased that one. Drug-fogged memory of seeing a limp corpse dragged past him in this room hung like a vapor in Leto's mind. He knew it had been Yui. Pardon me. So, the Baron coming back. Do you hear that noise, Duke Leto? We get this frog sound, this bird mewling that we had before. Remember with the torture or the death of Mapes, we heard this mewling sound. Excuse me, somebody's agony. I've caught one of your men disguised as a Fremen, we've been told. Not a good disguise because of the eyes. And this person has insisted they've been sent among the Fremen to spy on them. I've lived for a long time on this planet, cher cousin. One doesn't spy on the ragged scum of the desert. Tell me, did you buy their help? Did you send your woman and son to them? And again, Yui did that. Yui has sent the woman and son, if you want to take it from that point of view, to the Fremen. So the Baron is quite astute here. It's not that Leto has sent them, but that's where they've gone. The bit that's interesting, I suppose, is I've lived for a long time on this planet. And I've put problem here, Baron's eyes, that kind of thing. When we talk about those who live on Arrakis can't really leave it unless you've got a lifetime supply of melange, I suppose. But it's not quite the sense of that I got that the Baron lived on Atreides. I got that he ruled the planet through governors, if you like. Through, what's the word I suppose I'm looking for? He delegates. But there we go, from the Baron's lips himself. So again, Leto's this brings a little bit of fear to Leto. He feels the fear tighten in his chest. If if Yui had sent Jessica and Paul to the Fremen, then as far as he's concerned, the search won't stop until they're found, and that they would still be at risk. The Baron, come, we don't have much time. Pain is quick. And again, this, please don't bring it to this, my dear Duke. The Baron looks at Piter, who's at Leto's shoulder, we're told. So we're getting a bit of the scene set up here. Piter's not got as good tools here, so he can improvise. And we get this little bit of a torture talk, as I call it here in this bit of the chapter. Piter says that in terms of torture, improvisation is sometimes the best. And again, switches to Leto's point of view, and it sounds like a silly voice, this insinuating voice. Let me see, 47. All right. The silky. Sorry, did I say silly? That's my handwriting. Silky. And we keep getting that word with Piter's voice. Silky, insinuating voice. Leto heard it at his ear. You had an emergency plan. The Baron said, where have your woman and boy been sent? He looked at Leto's hand. Your ring is missing. Does the boy have it? Again, not much gets past the Baron. And he gives him this, okay, so you don't answer, you force me. We talk about people being forced to do things before. You force me to do this thing. That's what they call it each time, isn't it? It's always a thing that I don't want to do. Piter will use simple, direct methods. I agree. And he says, I agree that sometimes improvisation is sometimes the best, isn't it? Not good for you to be subjected to such things. So all of this. So simple, direct methods, I agree, they're sometimes the best. But it's not good that you should be subjected to such things. This is all about being tortured and not being tortured because you're a royal person. Basically, anyone else, they wouldn't even be having any kind of quandary whatsoever. And here we get Piter on a little discussion. Hot tallow on the back, perhaps on the eyelids. Piter said, maybe, perhaps on other portions of the body. He tells us that it's particularly effective when the victim knows where the next sort of hot bit of tallow will be. It's a good method, he says. There's beauty in the pattern. When the pus white blisters on naked skin, eh? Eh, Baron? Eh? And, exquisite. You really just get a sense of, okay, Piter's gone a wee bit over the top here. A sort of beauty in the pattern of pus white blisters. But just that, eh, Baron? Yeah. And exquisite, the Baron said, and his voice sounded sour. I'll read that again then. Exquisite, the Baron said, and his voice sounded sour. Those touching fingers. Leto watched the fat hands, the glittering jewels on baby fat hands, their compulsive wandering. Again, just the shift to Leto's point of view, focusing on the hands and the fingers. Just jumping back, I suppose, with the seriousness of the situation. So there's sounds of agony next door, coming through, being gnawed. They're gnawing at the Duke's nerves, we're told. Another nibbling term. He wonders who they've got in there, and is it Idaho? Based on the description that we were told, somebody sent to spy on the Fremen, probably. It sounds like Idaho's replacement for when he's been brought back from the banquet, I suppose. But it's reasonable for him to think it's Idaho. So again, the Baron's going on with this train of thought. Believe me, we don't want this, dear cousin. There's an interesting little phrase here. Let's find it. You think of nerve couriers racing to summon help that cannot come, Piter said. There's artistry in this, That's an odd little statement, I think. And I just put artistry in this. That's Piter's ego working. And we get a wonderful response from the Baron. This is why the Baron's a great villain. You're a superb artist, the Baron growled. Now have the decency to be silent. and just shuts his own man up here. And it's that be silent. We've heard a few, again, when characters are told to be silent in Dune, there's usually a bit of glaring and staring going on. And again, another switch to Leto's point of view. He suddenly recalled a thing. Here we go. Excuse me. Leto suddenly recalled a thing Gurney Halleck had once said, seeing a picture of the Baron. And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, and upon his hands the name of blasphemy. We waste time, Baron, Piter said. Perhaps. So that little quote is Revelation 13:1 from the New Testament. It's been edited. So let me see. And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea. And then there's a gap here. So the gap would go on to say the beast of 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his 10 horns 10 crowns. That's the bit that's missing from the quote. And upon his hands the name of blasphemy. So that's a quote from the book of Revelations. Where this is Leto recalling. It's a memory of whenever the Leto, Gurney saw a picture. I'm assuming it's a portrait of some kind of the Baron. And so it's a note to the first beast from the book of Revelations, which is a beast that rises up out of the sea, I suppose. The second beast comes up out of the earth, I believe. And again, we get a little sort of push on with the action here. We waste time, Baron. Perhaps. You'll tell us in the end there's a level of pain that will buy you. 51. Let me see. You'll tell us in the end where they are. There's a level of pain that'll buy you. And of course, Leto goes, he's most likely correct in his thoughts here. Was it not for the tooth? The fact that I truly don't know where they are. And that's a little victory, isn't it, for Leto? He doesn't know where they are. So there's no way, absolutely no way on this earth, or on Arrakis, that he can tell the Baron where his family are. Oh, I'll catch up with your comments here for a wee second, folks. I really hope Piter, Sacmo9 says, I really hope Piter shows up in the Sisters TV show. His appearance was so good, but so brief in the movie. It's one of the things that we've been saying, Sacmo. I thought the actor's really good. The role of Piter is completely wasted in the film, as is the Baron. They're hollow. I don't know. They're hollow versions of themselves, I think, of the characters. So yeah, it's a pity we just can't see more of the two in the film. And I think really, if you think about it, their time would be limited in the film. There's only really a couple of chapters in Dune where Piter and the Baron go at it, but it would have been really nice to see both actors given, a much better reign with these two characters. Because I think Piter's a wonderful psychopath. And it should be played in in a bit of an over the top way, I think. Cynthia says, I read this passage about handling it privately as the Baron's desire to put needed pressure on Leto without the audience of his guard and maybe Piter, not peacefully, but without the sense of theatre. Yeah, I wasn't too sure how to take that wee bit. There's definitely regret there. Privately, definitely, and without the audience, because the real problem here, Cynthia, it's what the Baron's pointing out, is that we really don't want anyone to see royalty treated like this. Not Sardaukar, not my guards, not really anybody. I suppose the Mentats have to be trusted to a point, but yeah, it's the implication is if what gets out, if Leto would be tortured, then any member of the royalty would be up for torture, I suppose, that kind of thing. Yeah. So there we go. That suggestion that Leto's got this kind of reminds Leto just this point where he tells Piter, sorry, the Baron tells Piter to shut up, basically. Um, this vision of the Baron just reminds him of this beast from the apocalypse. And yeah, it's a bit end of the world for Leto, I suppose, in that sense anyway. So yeah, he's absolutely correct. A person tortured will say anything pretty much after a wee while. But if it wasn't for the tooth, he's got leverage here. And simply fact, he doesn't know where they are. Ha! The Baron can't win on that one. And we get this quick shift of the Baron picking up a sliver of meat, pressed the morsel into his mouth, chewed slowly, swallowed. We must try a new tack here, he thought. And we'll see the sort of Baron adjusting his behavior here a couple of times, I suppose, in relation to his plans. Observe this prize person who denies he's for hire, the Baron said. Observe him, Piter. And this is what the Baron likes to do. He's done this before with Fade, and remember asking Fade to observe my mentat, observe Piter. He denies he's for hire. He can't be bought. And the Baron says, yes. See, here we go. This is the Baron's thoughts. Yes, see him there. This is a man who believes he cannot be bought. See him. Detained there by 1,000,000 shares of himself, sold in dribbles every second of his life. If you took him up now and shook him, he'd rattle inside, emptied, sold out. What difference how he dies now? What difference how he dies now? Leto's kind of described in terms of business terms there, in terms of stocks and shares, if you like, 1,000,000 shares. And the little all the shares are the dribbles of every second of his life. The term to take him and shake him, take him up and shook him, that's an insurance thing. If anybody doesn't know, it's an old insurance spiel. Whenever you're trying to sell people contents insurance, you ask them if you took your house upside down and shook it, whatever falls out is your contents. So that there's kind of trading, insurance, that kind of business associations here, which is quite interesting, I suppose. I wonder how, in terms of the economy of the empire, we talk about some commodities and stuff like that. All of our stocks and shares, etc., are to do with chom, aren't they? So finally, he's been emptied. He's vacant, if you like. He's been sold out. What difference does he die now? In other words, he's Sodom. He's nothing now, isn't he? He's not a duke anymore. He's empty. He's nothing. What? How? Who gives a monkey's how I kill him? And he's actually convinced himself that I should probably show respect for this guy because he's royalty. Sod it. He's nothing. I'll just, what difference how he dies now? And at that point, the frog sounds that we'd heard in the background have stopped. So this is the mewling that we heard before, wasn't it? It's the person being tortured in the next room. So Kadu comes in. The guard captain stands in the doorway across from the room, shakes his head. The captive has given no information. Another failure. So it's time to quit stalling. Frog sounds in the background had stopped. So it's another animal that we've got in here is the frogs. Yeah. Again, it's an association with an animal, not a person, I suppose. Time to quit stalling with this full duke. So again, he now refers to Leto as the fool, and we talked about that archetype as well. The other thing, I suppose, rather just briefly mentioning that, numerous characters occupy different archetypes within the Dune series, and they can move between them. So as much as Leto can be the father here, he very much can also be the fool, if you see what I mean. He's a stupid soft fool. Didn't realize. We've already had that kind of Revelations quotation there a minute ago. He didn't realize how much hell there was so near him, only a nerve's thickness away. So he's going to be quite happy to torture the Leto. This thought calms the Baron, overcomes his reluctance in showing royalty pain, I suppose. And so he's convinced himself, yeah, actually, after all of that, let's just torture this guy and not worry about it. And another little sort of interesting analogy here. The thought calmed the Baron, overcoming his reluctance to have a royal person subjected to pain. He saw himself suddenly as a surgeon, exercising endless supple scissor dissections, cutting away the masks from fools, exposing the hell beneath. Rabbits and fools. He wants to expose people. Rabbits, all of them. Rabbits. Oh dear, oh dear. Has anybody? I don't know. Does it remind anybody on the Father Ted episode? Is it the plague with all the rabbits and especially? That's a good one. Just made me think of it there. So again, rabbits, all of them, and how they cowered when they saw the carnivore. And that's how he sees himself. Somebody was mentioned that earlier. I can't remember who. Sorry, and that's really appalling of me. So let me just go back because it was a good point. There it is. It was Cynthia. Apologies, Cynthia. Way back there, you pointed out that the Baron calls himself a carnivore later in this chapter, right here. These early food images for the artillery suggest an omnivore. At the moment, he's eating a planet. There we go. So that was Cynthia's comment there, and he's comparing himself now to a carnivore. Eats meat. Carnivorous. And again, how they cower when they see the carnivore. It's one of the things I don't know who pointed it out there a wee minute ago as well. I think so. It was it Schmo9 talking about Piter showing up in the TV show and appearance so good but brief in the movie, etc. It's I don't know. This is one of those things with the Baron here. I think it's let me see. It's how they see the carnivore. I didn't find him threatening at all in the film. This bit, if I was thinking about how rabbits, all of them, how when they see the carnivore, and I was not that impressed or intimidated or scared or even impressed by intelligence, stature, verbosity, any of that kind of thing in the film. Sadly, but it gives us a wee idea of how the Baron views it himself here. We've had a carnivore, we've had a surgeon as well. Endless supple scissor dissections. It's incredibly sibilant and rather hard to say that. Cutting away the mask, exposing rabbits, how they cower, how they have fear. And I think that we're going to see this because Leto's really not afraid here, is he? And that's what he thinks. He's getting this wrong. Leto stared across the table, wondering why he waited. The tooth could end it all quickly. Still, it had been a good life. Still, it had been good, much of this life. And here we go. Here's one of his remembrances. He found himself remembering an antenna kite up dangling in the shell blue sky of Caladan, and Paul laughing with joy at the sight of it. And he remembered sunrise here on Arrakis, coloured strata on the shield wall, mellowed by dust haze. So he's got a picture of a kite on a wonderful blue sky back in Caladan, playing with his son, probably as a child, if they're out playing with kites, that kind of thing. And it's a remembrance of Paul, and it's a remembrance of Paul laughing with joy, happiness. And the sunrise on Arrakis is kind of mellow, hazy. Maybe that's the light that's what's happening, going on with his eyesight with the drugs. And so again, just running with this when they saw the carnivore. Too bad, the Baron muttered. He pushed himself back from the table, stood up slightly in his suspensors, and hesitated. Seeing a change come over the Duke, he saw the man drawing a deep breath, jawline stiffened, ripple of muscle there, and the Duke clamped his mouth shut. Hi, he fears me, the Baron thought. No. He's got it wrong. Shocked by fear that the Baron might escape him. Leto bit hard on the capsule tooth, felt it break. He opened his mouth, expelled the biting vapour he could taste as it formed on his tongue. The Baron grew smaller, a figure seen in a tightening tunnel. Leto heard a gasp beside his ear, the silky-voiced one. Piter. It got him too. Piter, what's wrong? The rumbling voice was far away. So this is Leto's attack. Here we go. He draws in a deep breath. The jawline stiffens. The ripple of muscle. Duke clamped his mouth shut. And of course, the Baron has got that badly wrong. How he fears me. Stupid mistake. But something just pushes him back at the slightest. There's something not quite right. And we get all that detail. So he bit hard on the tooth, felt it break, opened his mouth, expelled the biting vapour, could taste it on his tongue. The Baron grew smaller. The figure, like a figure seen in a tightening tunnel, and a gasp beside his ear. That's Piter de Vries. He got him. And of course, we can hear Piter, what's wrong? The rumbling voice far away. So that's the attack. And we all know how this goes, really. For those of you who watch the film, then you don't know how this goes at all. Because it doesn't go the way it does in the film. So, of course, we have Piter. The gasp is Piter kicking the bucket. So we have Piter dead here. So we've lost Yui in this chapter. We've confirmed that Juana Marcus is dead. And now we're losing Piter de Vries. What a great character. And a kind of a tragic comic way for him to go, I would imagine. And we get this. Of course, this is Leto's last moments as well, as he expels the gas. He sensed the memories rolling in his mind. The old toothless muttering of hags. And we've heard about these toothless hags before, and we don't really know who they are. And I've actually asked, who are they? It's a suggestion that they're like the Morai or the Grey Eye or something like that. The room, the table, the Baron, terrified eyes. Sorry, the room, the table, the Baron, a pair of terrified eyes, blue within blue, the eyes all compressed around him in ruined symmetry. And we have, that's Piter kicking the bucket. There was a man with a boot-toe chin, another toe, a toy man falling. The toy man had a broken nose slanted to the left. So again, this level of detail that Leto is seeing in his drugged or dying state here. An offbeat metronome caught forever at the start of an upward stroke. Leto heard the crash of crockery, so distant, roaring in his ears. So we get a right old bang, clunk, clunk kind of thing here. And of course, this is the guard captain, Uman Kadu, also dying. And we're told here at the end, this is Leto. His mind was a bin without end, catching everything that had ever been, every shout, every whisper, every silence. And we get his last thought here. So it really is quite an intimate way to go with the characters and to take their last thought up until point of death, I suppose. It's a very personal way of looking at a character. One thought remained to him. Leto saw it in formless light of rays of black. The day the flesh shapes, and the flesh the day shapes. The thought struck him with a sense of fullness he knew he could never explain. Now, I never got a chance to look this one up. I wonder, does this come from anything in particular? Let's have a look. The flash shapes. Let's see, where does that come from? Let's have a look. No, there's a bunch of people wondering where it comes from, and there's a Flash Shapes Today song by Tom Morello, apparently. Where does that one come from? I'll have to have a wee look into that. No, not finding anything there, folks. We'll have to have a wee nosy at that. Maybe somebody's got an idea. But otherwise, that's one we'll try and check up on. That probably comes from somewhere. I think it's an odd one. It's one of those kind of, as his last thoughts, the day the flesh shapes and the flesh the day shapes. What an odd thing to think, I suppose, as you're dying. The thought, and I just, there's one other thing here I just made a wee note of, folks, and I don't know what you think, for a wee bit of a giggle. The day the flesh shapes and the flesh the day shapes. The thought struck him with a sense of fullness he knew he could never explain. And then silence, and that's Leto dead. And I just put that the thought struck him with a sense of fullness, and that he could never explain. He groks. To understand something in fullness is to grok it, which is a wee nod to, I don't know, possibly a wee nod to Robert A. Heinlein there. Probably not. So, yeah, he's blasted. This has been Leto's attack. Leto is now dead as well. So that's the third. We've lost Piter, Kadu, Leto, Atreides, and a bunch of the Baron's guards here. But of course, the Baron has survived. He's got his back against his private door. He has his own bolt hole behind the table and had slammed it on a room full of dead men. So he's got in and closed the door and left plenty of people to die there. He's safe. His senses, he's picking up all these guards swarming around him like bees. Did I breathe it in? He wonders. Did it get me too? It's almost as if, is it possibly too late for him? But he's got away, and we're told that sounds return, plus his reason. That's an interesting way of putting it. Merciless hell, that was close. 62. There we go. Sounds returned to him and reason. He heard someone shouting orders, gas masks, keep the door closed, get blowers going. The others fell quickly, he thought. I'm still standing. I'm still breathing. Merciless hell, that was close. And indeed. Excuse me. So a direct attack on him. Here comes his analysis. The Baron's analysis of what's just happened. And he can analyze it now. He says he'd activated his shield, had it set low, which was low enough to slow molecular interchange across the field barrier, to slow down the gas. He pushed himself away from the table just in time. Piter's shocked gasp and also brought the guard captain to his doom. Oh, sorry, no. Piter's shocked gasp is what saved him, isn't it, really? I think. Hang on. As he'd been pushing away from the table, that and Piter's shocked gasp, which had brought the guard captain darting forward into his own doom. So, guard captain Kadu's kind of rushed in to help, and unfortunately it's cost him his life. Chance, and here's the thing, chance, everything down to chance, and the warning in a dying man's gasp, these had saved him. So this is one of the things that Herbert talks about, actually, is that things being left to, no matter how all these amazing plans and stuff, is that half the time things just occur by chance. Now, the Baron's alive. Let's see. And yeah, poor old Peter's dead. The Baron felt no gratitude to Peter. And as we do keep pointing out, that character's dead here. He's a great character, Peter. Um, an absolute, and I think one that any actor would absolutely revel in. Take it, see where you can take that character. He's a bit mad, a bit over the top, bit of a psycho, and enormous fun, I think, with when interacting with the Baron. But the Baron felt no gratitude to Peter. No, none at all. Poor Peter. Full. Got himself killed. Saved. And I've actually made a wee note. Well, it saves him the bother. But in terms of actually, he did need Peter for something. The stupid guard captain said he'd scoped everyone. How is this possible? There's been no warning, not even from the poison snippers on the table, until it was too late. How? And again, no matter now, he says, his mind firming up. He's not letting the panic of the situation, I suppose, get to him. He's very businesslike here. You'd kind of really want to know right now, wouldn't you, what the heck just happened? This is to be the new guard captain's first job. Excuse me. So there's activity down the hall. Around the corner, we have the other door to that, through the other door to that room of death, as he describes it. And he studies the lackeys around him. He's staring, silent. They're staring, silent and waiting for the Baron's reactions. And he wonders, I wonder, do they think, would the Baron be angry? He realizes that only a few seconds have passed. Some of his guards have got weapons leveled at the doors. Some are directing their ferocity down towards the empty hall, where we're told noises can be heard around the corner to the right. So a man comes in, and again, just the man, gas mask dangling by straps at his neck, and he's striding. So here's an entrance. Eyes intent on the overhead poison snipper. This man is yellow-haired, flat of face, has green eyes. Crisp lines radiated at his mouth. We're told he's a water creature, seems like a water creature misplaced amongst those who walk among the land. So the Baron recalls the name. Pardon me. This is his guard corporal, Ayakin Nephid. And just in terms of, we were talking about the Uman Karu's name, that relationship with Oman. Nephid is, of course, a desert in the northern part of the Arabian Peninsula. And it's an erg. Have a wee look at it. It's on. You can have a wee look. Now, the interesting thing is, there's a mention of it within Lawrence of Arabia as well, and I think it's more to do with the book than, sorry, not the book, the film rather than the book. But there we go. So he knows Nephid is. This is his guard corporal, and he's addicted to Samuta, the drug music combination that plays itself in the deepest consciousness. And this is a useful item of information. It's like the previous guard captain, that the Baron knows his vices. So here's Nephid. The one thing he knows is what drugs Nephid likes to take. So I think we've had a wee quick read about Samuta before, but we'll have another just while we're at it. So the Samuta is the second narcotic derivative by crystal extraction from burned residue of Elaka wood. The effect, described as timeless sustained ecstasy, is elicited by certain atonal vibrations referred to as Samuta music. There we go. So this is a drug that works with music. Creates ecstasy. So this guy stops in front of the Baron, tells him the corridor is clear. He was outside watching and saw what he thought was poison gas. The ventilators in our room and the air from the corridors, none of this stuff escaped. So the room's being cleaned now. And he go, orders, Baron, what are your orders? So this guy, simply put, this is what the Baron likes. This guy's very efficient. He's businesslike. Not like we're talking about, a lot of the other guards are sort of standing around, not too sure what to do. This guy's been businesslike. He's got it, everything sorted. None of the stuff escaped. We have the room cleaned out now. What are your orders? Straight to the point. efficient, this corporal, the Baron thought. They're all dead in there? He says, yes, my lord. So that's the confirmation of that. Well, we must adjust. And this is a thing with the Baron in this chapter, talks about adjustment. We must adjust. Offers his congratulations to Nephid, who's now the new captain of the guard. Tells him to take heart, the lesson to be learned of your predecessor. And he watches as the awareness grows in Nephid, as the man understands now that he's a guard captain. He will never have to, he'll never be without his drug again. He'll always have a regular supply of Samuta as long as he works for the Baron. He says to him, my lord knows I'll devote myself entirely to his safety. Yes, indeed. So the Baron, time to go to business. And we get this, hang on, jumped ahead of you. Yes, time to go to business. I suspect the Duke had something in his mouth. I want to know what it was, how it was used, and who helped him put it there. Take every precaution. And at this point, the Baron's train of thought is broken. There's a disturbance in the corridor, guards trying to hold back a tall Colonel Bashar who's emerged from the lift. He can't place the Colonel Bashar's face. It's thin, mouth with like a slash in leather, twin ink spots for eyes. Get your hands off me, you pack of carrion eaters, he roars, and dashes the guards aside. So he's not too happy. This is the Harkonnen men trying to slow him down to get to the Baron. The Colonel Bashar came striding towards the Baron, whose eyes went to slits of apprehension. The Sardaukar officers filled him with unease. They all seemed to look like relatives of the Duke, the late Duke, and their manners with the Baron. Oh dear. So again, we get this entrance of a Sardaukar striding in, and the fact that he looks a bit, the Baron's getting the sense that they look a bit like Leto Atreides, the Duke. And corrects himself, of course, the late Duke. And he doesn't like their manners. So the Bashar puts himself right in the Baron's face here, plants himself half a pace in front of the Baron, hands on hips, like that. Guards hovered behind him, twitching uncertainty. So there's an absolute absence of salute, doesn't salute the Baron. Absolute disdain in his manner makes the Baron's ease grow. Now, here's one. We're told the Baron noted the absence of salute, the disdain in the Sardaukar's manner, and his unease grew. There was only the one legion of them locally, 10 brigades, reinforcing the Harkonnen legions, but the Baron did not fool himself. That one legion was perfectly capable of turning on the Harkonnens and overcoming them. So I'll just put a wee bit of I'm not too sure about that. I would take a legion as a sort of in Roman terms, I would take a legion as about 5,500 men. In this case, they've said that that's 10 brigades. My understanding is that a modern brigade is around the same number, sorry. A brigade is about, I think, around the same, about 5,500 men. It can vary, I think. So, whatever structure there is to legions, brigades, etc. here, I have to think it's probably arbitrary or just made up by Frank. Because I'd say legion's a pretty old term. Brigades arguably much more modern. But the Baron doesn't fool himself. One legion of these guys would be far too much for his men. So we get a little bit of back and forth between these two. And I think some of it's quite funny. It's like the Baron's just lost Piter. And we have almost a bit of an odd couple moment, as I like to call Baron and the Piter. I think they're a bit of an odd couple. We almost have the same thing here from the Baron and the Bashar. So the Bashar starts off well by giving the Baron an order, pretty much. Tell your men they're not to prevent me from seeing you, Baron. And he growls every time we hear him. My men brought you the Atreides Duke before I could discuss his fate with you. We will discuss it now. And I've just put in a wee note here. That sounds like a mistake. That's the Sardakar's mistake. This man's mistake. My men brought the Duke to you before I could discuss his fate. It seems that he should have been there while, to discuss the Duke's fate before it's been suffered. I suppose the Baron's concerned about losing face in front of his men, and just gives him a so. And we get this and it's a coldly controlled word. The Emperor, we're told, has charged me to make sure that his royal cousin dies cleanly and without agony. So it seems that the Emperor has, this concern about how royalty should be treated, that the Baron has just gotten over, if you like. It seems that the Emperor has the same fear here. And the Baron lies here, we're told, and obviously, such were the imperial orders to me. Do you think I'd disobey? So the suggestion that this is about sort of playing the Sardaukar here, and suggesting that the Sardaukar might not know what orders the Emperor has given to the Baron in this matter. The Sardaukar tells us he's to report what he sees with his own two eyes. So the Duke's already dead, snapped the Baron. And he waves his hand to try and dismiss this guy, but he doesn't budge at all. So the Bashar remains planted. Not by flicker or eye or muscle does he acknowledge he's been dismissed. How? And again, growls. And the Baron thinks, really? This is too much. He doesn't like this guy. By his own hand, if you must know. Let me just find reading the right bit. By his own hand, if you must know, the Baron said he took poison. So, and again, as far as any kind of truth sayer might be able to run that one, it's fine. The Baron can say it. He hasn't killed Leto. Quite the opposite. Leto's tried to kill him. Now, I will see. So by his own hand, he took poison. The Sardaukar again says, I want to see the body now. And the Baron feigns exasperation. And it gets his thoughts racing. And he scans around the room a wee bit here. The sharp-eyed Sardaukar is going to see all these things that he doesn't want them to see. There's no preventing it. The Sardaukar will see all. So now with my own two eyes. This is the way the Baron's thoughts work here. The Sardaukar is going to know that the Duke had killed Harkonnen men, and that the Baron escaped with his life, and only just. There's going to be evidence of dinner remnants, that the dead Duke's body is across from it. There's destruction all around him. There's no preventing it at all. So the Bashar, again, this is the odd couple moment. I think is quite funny. It says, "There's, I'll not be put off." And the Baron just goes, "You're not being put off." The Baron said, and he stared into the Sardaukar's obsidian eyes. I hide nothing from my Emperor. And he nods to Nephid, gives him orders. Colonel Bashar is to see all at once. Take him by the door that you stood at. And of course, Nephid, this way, sir. And out goes the Sardaukar, slowly, insolently, moving around the Baron, and shoulders his way through the guards. So we get the Baron's thoughts here. Insufferable, the Baron thought. Now, the Emperor will know how I slipped up. He'll recognize it as a sign of weakness. Now, it's agonizing. This is what we're told. It's agonizing for him to realize this, that the Emperor and the Sardaukar are both alike in their disdain for weakness. And if we of course remember that pity that came out of the Sardaukar, when Yui was talking to him, they've no time for that. Disdain of weakness, disdain of pity, all of these kind of things. And he chews at his lower lip consoles himself a bit that the Emperor has not at least heard of the Atreides raid on Gidi Prime. So this was one of Leto's ideas, wasn't it, previously, that they were going to make a sort of little preemptive strike against the Harkonnen on Gidi Prime. And in terms of that strategy, we're told that actually worked. The destruction of the Harkonnen spice stores there. So, in some senses, must wonder. The, the Emperor at least had not learned of the Atreides raid on Gidi Prime, the destruction of the Harkonnen spice stores there. Damn that slippery Duke. So at least the Emperor hasn't heard about this, but this is a real problem. This is bad for the Baron. He talks earlier about not sacrificing men, and keeping everybody alive, and we possibly now wonder, is that because if their spice stores have all been depleted, you have to kind of wonder, did he keep all his eggs in one basket, that kind of thing. But it would mean a very damaging financial strike to the a strike to the finances of Harkonnen's financial resources. So it is bad. And he watches as the retreating backs of Nephid, who he sees as stocky and efficient, and the Sardaukar, who he sees as arrogant, leave. So, pardon me. Once again, the plan. We must adjust, the Baron thought. And here we go. So Piter being killed is a bit of a problem for the Baron. He had a use for Baron. He was going for Piter. He was going to make him the planetary governor, get everyone to hate him, and then bring Fade in as a hero to save the day. That can't happen now. So he has to go to plan. This is him adjusting, adapting, changing. He's going to put Raban in charge of Arrakis again, without restraint. Going to let him do what he wants, go nuts. I must spend my own Harkonnen blood. So this isn't what he's not happy about. He's going to have to waste a family member to achieve his goal, part of his plan here, rather than just bumping off Piter. Must spread my own Harkonnen blood to put Arrakis into a proper condition for accepting Fade Routha as a hero. So, but the Beast Raban is going to come in and be the villain, and it's all going to be a manipulation, and then in will come Fade Routha, equally a villain, to save the day, but will appear as a hero. Damn that Piter for getting himself killed. He would get killed before I was through with him. And he sighs. And it is a bit sad that Piter's done, and I suppose that you could see the future for Piter, and it didn't look good anyway. So here we go, something quite important that doesn't have too much payoff in this novel, but is I think of crucial nature to everything else in Dune. Here we go. This is about Piter. And I must send at once to Twi'leks for a new mentat. They undoubtedly have the new one ready for me by now. There we go. Twi'leks. And I think, excuse me, I think the planet Twi'leks is mentioned possibly once or twice in the entire book. And that's it. I think that was it. Bear with me. Yeah, we got one. And lone planet of Thalum, noted as renegade training center for mentats, source of twisted mentats. There we go. And oh, hang on, let me see. Tleil. Of course, there's two mentions in the book, and I'm only finding one. Wonder why that is. Right, there we go. So, of course, the suggestion is the Baron buys his mentats. He gets them from the Twi'leks, or the plant. How is it put here? Let's have a wee look. Wants 2 Twi'leks for a new mentat, and they undoubtedly have the new one ready for me by now. It's a very important thing, and I actually just wondered, does the Baron have many Piters? And later on, we'll find out, of course, that Piter de Vries is a Gola, which is not a term, I don't think, in Dune at all. Bear with me a wee second, actually, just quickly look that one up. Let's see. No, there's the word Gola does not appear in Dune. That's what this guy is. Of course, it's going to be really important to the whole story as it moves forward from the next book. But just in relation to that, I thought that is the Baron Peter Zagola, does the Baron have many Peter de Vrieses? In the same way that Leto the Second has his Duncans, and it just made me wonder about that. The new one ready for me by now. Is it a new Peter or is it another Mentat? And maybe did he have something different in mind for this one? He seems to spend a lot of time observing his Peters and learning from them. Maybe it's to sort of alter them as they go, make them slightly better for the next time. But there we go. Has to send for a new send to Twi'leks for a new Mentat. I know they should have the new one ready. I suppose that's going to ask a question. Going to make us ask a question later on. We'll have to assume that maybe there isn't one ready, or that it's just, I suppose, because he goes with Thufir. But we don't see a new Peter delivered or anything like that. A new Mentat taken to the Baron. So we have a guard coughing here. Takes his attention away. Food. So here we go. Just to end this chapter, the Baron turns towards the man. I'm hungry. Yes, my lord. And I wish to be diverted while you're clearing out that room and studying its secrets for me, the Baron rumbled. The guardsman lowered his eyes. What diversion does my lord wish? I'll be in my sleeping chambers. Bring me that young fellow we bought on Gamont, the one with the lovely eyes. Drug him well. I don't feel like wrestling. Yes, my lord. The Baron turned away, and this is our last chapter. So for our last part of the book. So sorry, section of this chapter. So we're just told, by the way, very quickly, that Gamont is another planet of Naashi from that ox tongue thing. Third planet of Naashi, noted as a hedonistic culture for exotic sexual practices. Of course, what we have here is that the Baron has bought a sex slave who is a young male slave. And this is the Baron's pedophilic nature. Again, you'll not get a thing of this in the film. And of course, why this particular person? And it shows you, it gives us this little sinister hangover at the end of this chapter. Why this person? He turned away, began moving with his bouncing, suspensor-buoyed pace toward his chambers. Yes, he thought, the one with the lovely eyes, the one who looks so much like the young Paul Atreides. And there we go. So, so what a chapter that is. And we get it all there. Intrigue, violence, death, secret weapons, destruction, the debauchery of the Baron, the gluttony of him, and of course Leto's final. It's there's so much in this chapter, isn't there, guys? It's so we have, I think, in turn we've got 5 confirmed fatalities, if you like. Some obviously Juana Marcus is already dead. So within this chapter we have Dr. Yuri, Juana Marcus, Leto himself. Who else do we get? Peter de Vries, of course, and the Baron's guard captain Uman Kadu all get taken out here. One is already dead. Yuri's killed by Peter, and then Leto manages to kill Peter and Uman Kadu. It's all about, yeah, that's good. And of course the tooth. Remember the tooth. It's quite an iconic, and sometimes possibly maybe people often wonder about what's this about the tooth and all this stuff in Dune. But it's just this little tiny thing that causes so much havoc. And I suppose we've gone from toe to tooth, haven't we, in the last couple of chapters. We also have an example of modern technologies being defeated by old technologies. And we have all sorts of food associations with the Baron. Kind of starts with food and ends with food. And a suggestion, again, doesn't let us forget that his character, there's a sexual depravity, etc., towards him, his character. So, goodness, I'm a bit clumsy with my words tonight. I have to apologize. I've been stumbling a wee bit, folks. It's just my throat going on me at that moment. It just kind of, oh, because it just felt like a wee pit appearing in my throat and I almost couldn't talk for one. So, I'm really pleased I was able to get through that. And I'm sorry if I kind of went at it at a bit of speed. I'll try and catch up with your just in case my throat went. I'll try and catch up with some of your comments here for a wee minute. And if you've got any questions or anything, fire away. Let's see. Peter says he's the prodigy of the Baron. Peter, the boy from Gamont. Poor boy from Gamont. Yeah, and that's one of those ones again. That's a bit weird, isn't it? That it's not just that the Baron's got suggesting he's a youth, so this is a child probably. So it's a paedophilic. He's a sex slave here who's a young boy. The really weird thing is that the person's meant to look like Paul Atreides. Is a that's taking the weirdness, I think, isn't it, even further? That it's almost a doppelganger, or a surrogate that he can imagine as Paul. So it leaves us with all of this. Oh goodness, the Baron's big evil guy. But is in this chapter, and isn't that you can see why, I suppose, in some senses you could want to sanitize a character like this. If you start it off with the food at the beginning, the food at the end, everything in between is the Baron operating at a pretty smart level. As much as all the great people here, we've got Peter de Vries, Mentat. Wow, what a smart guy. We've got Dr. Yui, a really smart guy. We've got Leto, who's just amazing. All of these people are dead, and he's not. And I think at the end of the day, and he is walking a kind of line in certain ways, and his predictions, his thoughts are usually pretty accurate, and where he thinks is what's going to happen, what he suspects might be happening. For example, in relation to Jessica and Paul, he's usually bang on. He's astute. And this chapter shows that clearly. He's got a good survival instinct also, I think, which shows it clearly. His hunger for power kind of extends beyond the personal, to his own house and to his family, if you like, who he's not unprepared to sacrifice. But yeah, there's issues of class in here as well. How the Baron sees royalty, how he sees himself in terms of the entire universe. It's his for grabbing. That he's the guy. As long as you're the guy that makes the right decisions, you should do it. I'm not a sheep. I'm not a rabbit. I'm not a bee. I'm not one of these drones. Not to be used for control or for breeding. That's his job. So there's a pretty big ego on him, but it seems to be backed up by ability. He's got a good intellect on him, and the Baron is. Remember, this is as much as we were talking about. We see the plan here coming sort of to its fruition. It isn't. This is one of the This is one of the plans. There are plans within this plan, within that kind of thing. The end game for the Baron is the throne. And it's a generational end game. It's the same game as the Bene Gesserit. There are two large plans in action from the very beginning of the book. We're having a look at one of them working, but both of them have the same goal: to put someone on the throne that's not them. The Baron knows it won't be him. It's about putting Fade, or possibly a child of Fade's, on the throne. And we had a wee point out about Cynthia was saying there about the passage about handling it privately as the Baron's desire to put the needed pressure on Leto without the audience of his guard. Maybe Peter, not peacefully without the sense of theatre. I got a wee sense that could have been even beforehand. That where the forms of Canley have been observed, this kind of thing. There's messages at the start. But I think also because there's, if you consider things like the Landsraad, there is a public nature, to to the great houses and the royalty of the emperor, I suppose. But how that works, um, there doesn't seem to be much mass media or anything like that in June. Even entertainment is kind of songs around the campfire and books, if you see what I mean. Which isn't all that different from how it was when I suppose when I was a kid. You had radio, you had TV, three channels, books, play your music, that kind of thing. The amount of, I suppose, stuff available to people these days is incredible. But we also have a sense that a lot of drugs seem to bring people's downfalls. But Leto's, they're able to get at Leto because he's constantly taking drugs for tiredness, isn't he? Each of the Barons people here, the Barons guys messed up, but they're all drug users. Almost everyone seems to have a drug of some kind, and arguably, pretty much, I'm sure the Baron's on melange himself as well. Goodness, there we go. That was a heck of a chapter to get through. It's heavy chapter, isn't it? And the action moves pretty fast. There's a lot of detail. And we get, particularly, I suppose, taking time on Leto's kind of visions, I suppose, his memories. The kite, ones of childhood and happiness. I'm still very curious to know who are these old hags, toothless old hags that Leto keeps remembering. And as I said, there's a strong suggestion that they're like the Grey Eye or the Morai or something like that, or the Fates, perhaps, which would be the Morai. But I always think, keep mentioning these toothless hags. Bear with me a wee second. I'm kind of curious about this one. Let's look up the word hags. Shouldn't appear too often. There we go. Leto sense memories rolling around the old toothless mutterings of hags. Oh, maybe it's me. I could have sworn I had read that. Oh, before. Maybe, let's see, try toothless. Let's see. Here we go. They're not called hags the first time. This is whenever he encounters the back at the house on Arakeen, the water custom. I know the custom. Take these basins to the front of the door. While we're eating and until we're finished, each beggar who calls may have a full cup of water. Understood? This bit, as he's dealing with the housewoman from the member of staff from his house, his face clouded and he growled, "I'm posting a guard to see that my orders are carried out to the letter." He whirled, strode back down to the passage to the great hall. Memories rolled in his mind like the toothless mutterings of old women. Oh, there we go. That's what I was wondering what it was. And then we have like Leto sense memories rolling in his mind, the old toothless mutterings of hags. So I'm wondering, is that a metaphor or is it? I don't know. It's a weird one. But yeah, it's not quite the same thing I was thinking on there. Let's see. Leto's last minutes are quite strong. Yui gave him a drug that allowed him to listen, think well, despite all. With that choice, Yui gave him a bit of dignity before the end. Yeah, and I suppose defiance and the ability to choose his own ending, I suppose, here. Chris Gibson says, I was trying to bring to mind an occasion when royalty showed concern about the consequences of killing another royal. It was Elizabeth I, Mary Queen of Scots. Okay. You could look at the reaction of the British royal family to the oh goodness, what is it? Is it the Romanovs? Because they're all related. So that's the execution of the Romanov family. In Britain, basically, the British royal family's name is Saxe-Coburg-Gotha. So at that point, when the Russians put their royal family, all the royal families of Europe are pretty much related. Whenever they put them up against the wall and shot them all, That's what caused the British royal family to change their names. So they took the names of two castles, I think, isn't that correct? So one half of the family is the Mountbattens, and the other half's the Windsors, Mountbatten Castle and Windsor Castle. So that's another example of an occasion when royalty showed concern about the consequences of killing another royal. A good one, Chris, actually, in terms of that, the one that I was thinking of, and I thought I'd written it down, is Julius Caesar and Pompey. The end of Pompey, I think wasn't Pompey. I think was killed by the Egyptians, and he's a Roman senator and general. And let me see. Let's Pompey's death. And I don't think Caesar was too happy about it one bit. Civil War assassination. Let me just quickly look this up. Sorry, not that I like Wikipedia for such things, but we'll get to the crux of it very quickly. Oh, as always, there's plenty here. Let me see. Yeah. Like a furnace in a boat, prompted Pompey to tell Septimus that he was an old comrade, later merely nodding. He thrust a sword into Pompey, and then Achilles and Savius stabbed him with daggers. The people on Pompey's ship could see us and horrified fled. Because the wind was favourable, the Egyptians did not pursue them. Pompey's head was severed, and his unclothed body was thrown into the sea. Philip, one of Pompey's freedmen who had been boarded the boat, wrapped it with his tunic and made a funeral pyre on the shore. Pompey died the day before his 50th birthday. When Caesar arrived in Egypt a few days later, he was appalled. He turned away, loathing the men who brought Pompey's head. When Caesar was given Pompey's seal ring, he cried. Theodotus left Egypt and escaped Caesar's revenge. Pompey's remains were taken to Cornelia, who gave them burial at his Alban villa. So there you go. The death of Pompey was, again, you shouldn't, more of a Romans discussing how a Roman senator stroke general talking about how other Romans should be treated by people who aren't Romans, I suppose. But yeah, a good few examples of that kind of thing. And there's nothing that separates people who think that they're royal. I suppose it's just a mad delusion that their blood's somehow different than yours, or that they're divine representatives of God on this earth, like Queen Elizabeth II. Let's see. So I was trying to bring in, yeah. So that's a good example, I think, Chris. Bojack says maybe the Baron has a little prescience from his time on Arrakis. Excuse me. Well, particularly I suppose he knows the place. Bojack. That's kind of what we said about the whole thing starting off with the artillery. He's predicted where the Duke's men will go, because he knows the planet, he knows the territory. Particularly with Arrakis, it's rock or nothing, really. It's rock or worm food, isn't it? Didn't the Baron reference Twi'leks or Twi'leks in chapter 2? Possibly. Let's have a look. See, the words mentioned, I think there's a misspelling of Twi'lek. There we go. I'm not wrong, am I? There we go. It's misspelt, so I that's why. Oh no, here, hang on. Oh no, hang on. That's the one we were looking at. I must send it once to Tleilax, Tleielax, and let me just have a look. It's one worth checking. Right, that's just at the end of the chapter, isn't it? Let's see. Right, I'm working off an electronic edition here, and I must send it once to Tleilax. And the electronic one I have is misspelled. And it's Tleielax. And I actually thought that was, let me see. Oh, we got another one of our little oddities here. Oh. Now, and that's because right now. Let's take that out. I've got yeah. There we go. And then the only other one I have is mentioned in the appendix. Right, out of curiosity, where was that one? That was at the end of this chapter. It's the same chapter. Yeah, it's a misprint in the electronic one I have, but I think it's just a couple of times. Maybe mentioned in passing, possibly, but I think there's only the word itself is only mentioned a couple of times in the book. I might be wrong there. Oh, do. I think I think something mentioned about them, possibly. But I don't think Triax. I think is only a couple of times in the book. Yeah. Chris Gibson says, "Fun fact: they also decided to end the practice of the male heir marrying a German prince." I don't know about the British royal family. I don't know about those practices. I think I suppose they haven't had a female to come into the line with the throne yet, have they? But I wonder what it would occur. But the British royal family is not in a very good state of affairs, I suppose, these days. They're they're up to their neck in all sorts, aren't they? And yeah, you could probably imagine Prince Andrew joining the Piter in his trip to Gamont or something like that. It's all a bit shocking, I suppose. It's not really at all. Yeah, buying peerships and lordships and all that. Yeah, utterly useless people. But there we go, folks. So thank you very much. I'm going to call a wee line under this one tonight because of the state of my throat. I have to say it's a bit bad tonight. I do apologise. And we have chapter 22, which is another big one for this Sunday. So we'll be ready to deal with that hopefully on Sunday if my throat's got a bit of rest. I'll get some cough sweets in. Pardon me. And we'll have completed book 1 of Dune. And we'll be ready to start book 2, entitled Muad'Dib. And really getting into the planet of Arrakis a bit more. I think I'm looking forward to it, getting the action. But it's been a great chapter, this one. Lots of things, little bits of food for thought, etc. And the fact that these plans are still going, and of course we've got to come back to our cliffhanger and see what's happened with Jessica and Paul. And we've also got little mysteries. Where's Howat? Where's Idaho? Where's Halleck? Where's all these top lieutenants and what's happened to them, etc. So there we go, folks. So sorry about that. I would happily normally natter on a wee bit to midnight, but if we don't look after the throat, I think we'll not be able to do the next one. So I'll promise I'll rest my throat, and we'll probably be on tomorrow night for a bit of a sci-fi Friday. Throat being okay, hopefully. So in the meantime, that was a great chapter. I really enjoyed it. And we've said goodbye to some great characters. Leto the first, not really being this great man that he's painted to be throughout the books, I suppose, but he has his moment at the end and dies heroically, tragically, maybe not in the circumstances he would like, but even to a point triumphantly, though he fails. Again, he doesn't get the Baron, does he? He gets Piter. So we have a certain degree of sympathy for Leto, I suppose, and it brings a sort of reality to him. I think that otherwise he's been very much painted as a mythological person. And it's only when he sort of does something that kind of makes a bit of sense and we have a bit of pity for him that he becomes a mythological person, as opposed in the history of the Empire. So of course we said goodbye to Yui and all his machinations, but they're going to keep running in a way. And what Yui has set in motion continues on after his death. So yeah, another exciting big chunky chapter for Sunday, folks, and we'll have come to the end of book 1 of Dune, which is a wee bit of a milestone as we've been going. And as always, thank you very much for your input and your help with this, and it's great interacting with you guys. So I'll just finish off with the wee comments, and then I'll say good night, folks, and save my voice for next time. I hope you can join me the next time. It'll be tomorrow at 9 o'clock GMT +1. So Factor says good night and get better, Doc. Thanks, Factor. It's just a throat thing, you know. And Cynthia says thanks for your time on this. You're more than welcome as always, guys. Chris Gibson says, "Yep, look after you and yours, Doc." Thank you. We will do. Listen, guys, look after yourselves no matter where you are. Sorry to cut the banter short tonight. Chaya says, "Thanks. Good night." Thank you, Chaya, and good night to you. And look after yourselves, and we'll see you real soon. Take care no matter where you are. All the very best. Good night. Do 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 do. Ba 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 ba.